Awesome, well, we'll get started. Today we're talking about content marketing, why your content can't suck, which is a major topic that everybody's talking about these days. Content is one of the biggest. We have a small group, so definitely throughout this, if you have questions, please ask. I think we've got the time with the slides, and some of these topics can be more expansive than I'm talking about, so if there's clarifications you need or other things, please feel free to just break in and ask. Just to give you a sense, we've been doing these seminars monthly almost for coming on a year and a half. The next one coming up is website conversion. Stop turning your customers away. I'm a big fan of this. How do you get more people to take action? So instead of one person filling out a contact form or 5 people adding a product to their cart, how do you get double that or 3 times that? So it's a really interesting topic. We have a full seminar scheduled at Insivia.com/seminar, so check it out, and slides from all of our past events if you want to just go back and check some of that stuff out. So we're Insivia Strategic Marketing Agency. Most of you in the room know who we are, but we really go in and act as an outsourced marketing department, coming in and helping from anything with audits and strategy to web design and video and animation, e-commerce, all the ways to monthly engagements where we're doing search, pay-per-click, social media, and really handling the full gambit for clients, including content marketing. So here's a couple. There's Matt and Matt. He likes being pointed out every time. What'd you say?
I just said hello.
So I wanted to start out with this concept called revenue mapping, just to get a sense of the big picture. This is what we've been calling the overall marketing process, and I think it's good to get a good insight of how this system really works. And I'm going to get in depth with a couple of these pieces, but it's good to look at this big picture. So what we have over here on the left is our channels, typically search optimization, networking, sponsoring, pay-per-click, direct mail, our awareness campaigns, how we're getting out to a lot of different people. And those tend to drive into either 3 things: your main website, a microsite that you've developed, so something specific on a specific topic, or a landing page like in the case of pay-per-click. And this counts for everything. If you're doing networking, people are looking at your business card, they're going to your main website. If you're doing some sort of direct mail campaign, they're probably being sent to a website or a microsite. If you're doing pay-per-click campaigns, they should be sent to a landing page. And now today what it really is you get to your site and you have various content that people are looking for and they're downloading. So we have either content or conversion on your website. So either someone's ready to buy right now and they're going to fill out your contact form, make a phone call, or potentially purchase if it's e-commerce. But the thing that we need to remember is most people aren't ready to buy today. I think the number is like 85% of people that typically come to a site are there for initial research. They're deciding whether they're going to put you on that top 3 list to come back and look at and do their due diligence. So what we really need to do is, since this isn't the majority of our visitors, yes, we want to convert, we really need to figure out a way, how do we stay in contact with these people over a continual amount of time so that when they are ready to buy or they're further down the process, we've stayed in connection with them. So really what that is this content. So we have someone download an ebook about a specific subject. We have them fill out a calculator and email them the results. We're gaining their contact information, and they're going up here into this right-hand column, or this right-hand box, that's your warm leads, and that's marketing automation. I don't know how many people are familiar with marketing automation, but basically what it is if I have some sort of ad for search optimization, they come to my site, they download an ebook on search optimization, they go into that list, and then it'll send them an email the first day, it'll send them another email in 2 weeks, and then it'll send them another email in a month. And if you go and interact with your website differently, it'll throw you into a different path. So it automates that nurture process so that when somebody is somewhat interested in your business, you don't have to do the follow-ups, it will do it for you and continually stay in touch with them. And what you're really trying to do with marketing automation is continually drive them back. So I signed up for that first thing on my site, I go into marketing automation, it then presents me and says, check out this webinar. And I come back to the site, and that's again, hopefully where we're trying to drive people into conversion, getting them to do a phone call or fill out a contact form, and then come into our CRM and go through the sales process. So that's really what the picture of a great marketing strategy looks like, is that we've got awareness, we've got nurturing and conversion, we've got marketing automation, and we've got closing sales. And if we're missing different parts of this, the truth is that your marketing strategy probably isn't working very well. And if you think about it, if you're really focused on SEO and going into conversion and hoping that goes into sales, there's a lot of people that aren't ready to buy right now that you're letting get away from you. So you really need to look at this model as a way to capture everyone and do marketing correctly. Any questions on the revenue map? Because it is complex a little bit. No? So we're talking about content today, and it's really the center of everything that we're doing in marketing anymore, and there's a reason why. And I'll talk about content being valuable, unique, and relevant, which is extremely important. But if we look at it, search optimization is really based off of content these days. You're trying to build inbound links into your site. Other people linking from other websites into yours is what helps build search optimization. Same with social media, getting +1s on Google+, likes on Facebook. Those are actually the top ranking factors now for search optimization, so content is at the center of that. Pay-per-click. When you're doing a pay-per-click campaign and you're targeting some keyword, someone is going to a landing page, you're really trying to have options for them to download an ebook, view this seminar, watch our video. Content is the center of our pay-per-click campaigns to make them really successful. Email marketing, if we're sending out blasts, the best thing for us to send out is definitely our content. If we're creating this information for these other channels, we should be using our email as a way to distribute it as well. Automation, so I talked about how we're sending those emails on a regular basis. What are we sending them? Hey, you signed up for this SEO ebook, you downloaded it. Wouldn't you like to check out this webinar on social search optimization? Wouldn't you like to download these 10 facts on how accounting firms can do better search optimization? So the content is center of our automation program as well. Sales. Our sales team, I always say, if you're creating great content, your sales team should be following up with that. You had a first in-person meeting. Hey, thanks for meeting with me. Here's this seminar that we did, a webinar that we did on search optimization. Take a little bit more of a look. Traditional, using it at trade shows, and then social. Obviously, what we're sharing on social media channels is content that we're creating. So really, the reason that this has become so important, it's such a big topic, is content truly is at the center of everything that we're doing. And if we don't have a good strategy and approach for content, we're really not utilizing any of these different channels correctly. So this is a nice little graphic that I think shows kind of the different types of content that you can create and what they're good for. So we have down here educate in this corner, we have entertain, we have inspire, and we have convince. And what we're looking at is on the educate side, if we're trying to educate our prospects, we're really looking at infographics, guides, trend reports, press releases. Ebooks kind of matches over on the entertain, and articles over on entertain/educate. If we get into inspire, it's things like celebrity endorsements, reviews. And if we're looking at convince, it's webinars, calculators, the things that make people make decisions and go through those more due diligence pieces. And this is a good graphic that when you're creating a content marketing strategy and you're trying to figure out how we go about it, and you're looking at your market, you're looking at who you're trying to get in touch with, what the process is, what they appreciate, this is a good way to say, well, hey, we really need help in a certain area when we're trying to convince people. Or we know that education as a firm is a good way that we bring in prospects. And this gives you a good sense of what types of content you should be doing. Because it is hard to do it all. We can't do 30 or 40 different things here and do them in different ways. So this is a great way, a kind of graph like this, to really help us figure out what should we be focusing on. So this is a really simple graph, but I kind of wanted to show how things tie together. And that's really what I want to talk about, is that all this stuff fits together. We create great content over here, and really what we're doing is we're sending it out via social media, we're sending it out via email. And by doing that, we're able to get more inbound links, which drives up our search rank. And our search rank going up, that when people search, They're then going to follow us on social media, and they're going to add onto our email list, which gives us a bigger audience to send it out to. And so the thought process is that we're really using this as a continual growth model, that everything compounds on itself. That if you're using all these channels correctly, you're growing your search rank is growing your social media and your email and your social media are helping get content out there, which is growing those inbound links and coming back around. So if we're only focusing on one thing, and I hear this a lot, I'll go into a company and they'll say, I just want search optimization. Oh, well, we need to be doing social media, we need to be doing email marketing. And they say, no, I just want to get a higher rank. Well, that's impossible. These things all happen together. It's an integrated system. If you're trying to have one strategy, it really doesn't work. You have to do all of it together.
How do you build your email list?
How do you build your email list?
Yeah.
It's a good question. So I don't suggest buying lists, just from a standpoint of it tends to be very inaccurate. The people have not signed up for it, so the response rates are really low. You tend to have 0.01% open rates on purchase lists. The way you really have to build it is using tactics like this, creating a great, let's call it, if your service for me is search optimization, creating a great white paper, and then using existing social media that you have, utilizing pay-per-click to drive to a page, and then having, hey, if you download this ebook, you have to put in your email address. And so you really have to create things that are valuable for people and convince them to give you their email address. And it takes time. I mean, the best email lists don't happen overnight. The best email lists that get the highest open rates, that get the best conversion rates, are things that you build over time. And that's why it's really important that you, as soon as you can, you start building a list, and that it's the 2-year mark when you have 100,000 people signed up, that it starts becoming,
So you got to offer them something in the beginning?
Yes. You have to give to get, is basically what it is. And a lot of people want the quick way to do it of like buying a list. Really what you want to do is offer that great content and then find ways to promote the content, whether that's through other organizations, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But
what do you actually call that marketing strategy?
List building, organic list building. So, to me, marketing is all about value, and we've really got to create value for our target audience, and that's how we're successful. One thing that I like to show is, where great content happens. The one thing is that we don't want to do is when we're creating content, create crap. And I mean, that's really what the title of the seminar was, but at the end of the day, there's 100,000 companies creating content out there today. And in your industry, there's probably some firm that does it specifically, creates content for accounting firms or for attorneys or whatever it might be. But they're creating generic, cookie-cutter stuff that they'll send out to 100 different firms. That really isn't a great strategy because people are going to see it everywhere. They're not going to get value out of it. They're not going to give up their email address for it. It's not going to get shared because no one gives a crap. You've really got to focus on creating really great content. So how you do that is, one, make it extremely unique so it doesn't exist anywhere. They can't just go on the web and find it. If you create really unique stuff, things that people can't find other places, and that can not only be the topic, but also the way in which you do it, whether it's a class or it's a cool video that's a little bit more entertaining, but something that's unique for that model. Targeting. So really understanding who it needs to go for and what is important to them. That you're not trying to create, in our industry, instead of, we've really moved to the model where instead of creating an article about search optimization, we create one about manufacturing B2B companies that are, between 10 million and 100 million, how they do search optimization specifically. So it's extremely targeted towards some sort of audience. And then valuable, they get value out of it. They're actually getting use out of it. The one thing is a lot of companies try to be surface level with this stuff, and that really provides no value to your end customer. You have to move away from being surface level and actually give something away. And that can be scary sometimes, but you really have to do it. You have to stretch those bounds and give them the tips that they won't get somewhere else. And that's where you beat the competition, because your competition is probably doing the same thing. They're thinking, I don't want to give all of this away, so I'm just going to hold back. But if you go a step further, you're really creating value for someone, which is going to make them want to buy from you. So if we can be in the center of this, unique, valuable, and targeted, that's where content is extremely powerful, and you're going to get a lot more shares, a lot more inbound links, you're going to grow your list, all of these things are going to happen. If you're outside of this, you're going to create content, and I bet you're not going to get very much social media activity. No one's going to sign up to download anything. That's where you end up having failure, and you think content marketing doesn't work, but it actually does. So what is value? Value is king. They say content is king, but truly it's value is king. So what is value? Helping me solve a problem. I had a great example of this the other day where our phone system, everybody complains about our on-hold music, which I think is funny because it's very dated and weird. So I just looked up, I looked up our phone system and said, how do you change the on-hold music for this phone system? A video pops up, the first result, YouTube, how to change your voice or your on-hold music for X phone system. I watched it. It was some device that you got and you plugged in. You could put a USB with an MP3 in it. Guess who put the video up? The company that sold the little device. And what did I do? At the end of the video, they had a URL at the end of the video, go buy the product. I bought it the same day. So it helped me solve a problem. And that's what content can do. If we understand our target audience and the pains that they have and the problems that they're having on a regular basis, and we can help solve them, we can really drive people into leads. They're going to follow us, and then they're going to want to do business with us. Teach me something new. Tell me a story is a great one. That entertainment factor. Show me something I've never seen before, which is interesting, and then make me laugh, cry, or cheer. That's obviously when you get into consumer products, things that you can do for the entertainment factor. And a cool one that I saw recently, and just to show different examples, but I think it was Caterpillar did with their machines, they did a game of Jenga. So they were using their forklifts to move around big logs and created a Jenga thing, and were moving different pieces around. So that's a big equipment company that's able to come up with a cool, funny piece of content, and they got a ton of social media exposure out of it. So it just shows that, no matter what industry you're in, you really can come up with something interesting. So the next thing is targeting. So at the end of the day, the other piece is we're creating great content. We really want to be extremely targeted. If we're generic with what we're doing, we're just creating content for everybody, we've got a strategy for everyone, it doesn't work. What we really want to do is create very micro-specific focuses that are on different groups, whether that's an industry, I think I've got some here, someone is in the accounting industry, so I really want to target them, so I'm creating content specifically for them. So if you go after 4 different verticals, you should really break those up into 4 different verticals and your content strategy within each of those 4 different verticals. Or you could do it towards their position. We typically talk to marketing managers. So we really want to think about that specific group rather than trying to target the CEO of a company, the IT manager, the marketing manager. We're really breaking it down. They're interested in only one service, M&A service or something like that. Someone that is only focused on one thing. Pain, this is one of my favorites, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. But my CRM won't integrate with the website. Some pain that they're having. Really creating a focus around that. So if you're creating multiple articles or some sort of microsite, it's really around that pain. Or potentially the family status changes if you're in consumer products, you become an empty nester. A lot of this is towards B2B, but if we remember back to consumer products, there's different pieces. So what we're really trying to do is, instead of blanket saying, let's create content as a company, what we need to do is really create these small micro-target groups and develop strategies for each of them. Because if we're too generic, we're really not going to speak to them very well. We're not going to, meet the needs that they have or potentially solve their problems. We're going to stay that surface level. But if we break down our audiences into really small groups, we're able to really get in there and help solve those problems, tell the right stories, help make them laugh, all of these different pieces. So we really want to create these groups. So for those of you that have been on other seminars, I bring this up a lot, the persona document. So a persona is basically a document that describes out a lot of different aspects about a target audience. And I truly believe that if you haven't sat down with your business and started to create some of these persona documents, you're really not set up well to do great marketing. And so things that a persona includes can be, the type of technology that they use in their expertise level, personality traits, list of pains, what problems are they having, what are the key performance indicators in their job function, all of these different things. So we really want to come down and say, well, we're typically targeting chief information officers at mid-market companies. What is all this information about this person? And let's build out a big persona that truly defines, what are they interested in? What are they having problems with? How good are they at technology? What softwares do they use on a regular basis? What platforms? What must you never say to them? What should you always say to them? All of these different pieces. And when we have these documents, we then have that foundational piece that we can start creating great content from. And we can always go back to and say, okay, I know Joe, I'm trying to write an article to help to reach him. So now I can go back and look at this list and say, well, he's always using his mobile phone, and one of his pains is that he can never access his CRM on his mobile phone. I can create a piece of content that really answers that problem, and now I've got something that is perfectly valuable for my target audience, and then I have an opportunity to get them to sign up for something.
Where does the persona come from? Is this a survey? Is this something you create internally based upon your knowledge of your clientele and your target audience? Is there an app that you use an app for that, I'm sure? Is there something that, what helps you put this information together?
Yeah, it's got to be a mix. So when we're doing it, we're typically going through a process of interviewing people internally with the company. Potentially we'll go in and do outside surveying where, whether it's to their own clients or people in the market. There's data that you can research on the web to find some of these pieces. Surprisingly, it's hard to find persona data. A lot of it has to be built. People don't share it. There really isn't an app for it. Interestingly enough, we're trying to create one internally to help build personas. But it does. It takes some time to sit down and research, utilize people throughout your organization, compile that data, and then build it in a model that makes sense. And they constantly, and I do have a seminar that talks a lot more about this stuff, but they also change. And you have to remember that a persona does not stay the same forever. So if you create it now, this year, in at least 6 months or 12 months, you should be looking back at it and saying, okay, what pains have changed? What have we learned better? Are platforms changing? How is the industry changing associated to these? So these should be some of those core documents that you're always carrying along with every marketing strategy. And it doesn't just have to do with content marketing. If you're doing pay-per-click, you should really understand this so that you're doing the right ads. If you're doing your website, you should really be building personas to understand who's the audience that's flowing through this and what kind of content do they want to see. Almost anything you do in marketing, personas should be the foundation of it. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, I was watching a program a couple of weeks ago on the internet, and there was this gentleman, he was going through some social networking program, and he was looking at the listing of emails. How did he get that?
There's some softwares out there. There's an interesting one that just came out that you can literally put in someone's name and their company and it'll pop out with their email address.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of these softwares out there now that can skim different websites or assume what it is, and they can tie that into social media to find out what people's email addresses are. There's ways even in Facebook that you can go into groups.
Yeah, he was using Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, and you can export all their IDs, and then you can create targeted ads towards a specific group of people.
What's the name of the software?
I don't know it offhand. I'll have to look. Maybe one of these guys can look it up. But
The email one is called Cell Hack, I believe.
yeah, well, there's one called Cell Hack, and that one's really you just install it on your computer. You put in a name and you put in a company, and it'll spit you out their email address. So there's a lot of cool stuff out there like that. But personas, definitely the foundation of a lot of this stuff. Again, if we're creating great content, we're trying to do value, trying to make it unique, solve pains, tell a story. If we're not coming back to our personas to help do that, again, our marketing is probably going to be faulty. So this is somewhere to definitely start when we're looking at it. So we talked about that content graph that we had that showed, educate versus entertain, inspire, etc. And so that kind of showed a little bit of what this is, but this shows it a little bit more clearly. But this is based on the buying cycle. So we typically call people at the beginning of the funnel suspects. So it's just brand awareness we're trying to get out there. The content that's related to that, social media posts that send out videos, infographics, articles, newsletters, these simple things that are just getting awareness for us. And then we move into leads, where we're really giving people things like case studies, white papers, webinars, ebooks. They're taking a little bit more of an in-depth step, and they're probably giving us their email address. And by getting their email address, they become a lead for us. And then they move into opportunity. So now we've actually got a lead, but then we contact them and they're ready to talk about what they're interested in and doing business with us. And this is where we use content like demos, ROI calculators, pricing guides, even testimonials, and a little bit of trade show. So you can see that in the other case where we're talking about what you wanted to do, educate or inspire, in this one we're really talking about what content you should use during different parts of the buying process. So this doesn't, just have to do with creating leads, but it's also in the sales process of helping close sales. Does that make sense? So I'm going to walk through a little example. I figured just because this gets a little confusing at times, hopefully this real life example might help. So I have an article that we're creating, and I'll show you that in a second, but it's called How Mid-Market CFOs Optimize Ohio Tax Withholdings in 2014. So, random topic. So that's what we would send out. And I just want to kind of show you social distribution. So imagine we have 6,000 people in our social reach and with 10 employees. And again, that's something I'll talk about. Make sure you are trying to get your employees involved in the social reach. We have 6,000 people there. LinkedIn, we have 1,100 CFOs. We have 30,000 people with our 10 people on Twitter and Facebook. On our list, we have 400 visitors a day that come to our blog. We have 3,800 subscribers to our mailing list that is specifically for mid-market companies. 600 people in a vendor list. We have search, we're #1 for 6 phrase variations, which is driving more traffic to our site. And then we do a pay-per-click campaign on this article that we created that we're paying 10 cents a click for because it's an extremely, it's something that's not very competitive, so you're paying a very low rate for clicks. So you imagine you create this piece of content, and this is our distribution model. And we're able to get it out to something like 40,000 people right away, instantly, and getting that exposure and driving people into our article. And so this is the reason that with social media, we really want to build our list. We want to bring in our other people within our company. We want to build our email list so that as we build this strategy and create content and we're pushing it out, we've got an instant access to a wide group of people. So this is the example of the article that we're sending out. We're saying to people on this, throughout all this list, we're saying, see how mid-market CFOs optimize Ohio tax withholdings. And they get to this article and it's really targeted, so obviously it's towards mid-market companies, it's towards CFOs, and it's for 2014, so it's looking at the upcoming year. It's really valuable. It's some issue that they're having. They want to figure out how to optimize tax withholdings. And then it's an article, it's a short piece of content that they can just come in and browse and see. So now what we have is we actually have at the bottom of the page of this article, download our 2014 mid-market tax guide and enter your email to do it. So what I really want to show is we have this article about a specific topic, and then we have a lead conversion point to get their email address that's related to the title and the content of the article. And that's important. You don't want to have some article that you're writing about, let's call it pay-per-click, and then I'm offering a download about branding, in my industry. That wouldn't work. So this is the process. So we've distributed it to 40,000 people. They come into this. We ask them to download this and get into our list, which then goes into marketing automation. I talked about that platform like HubSpot or Pardot. And it sends them a first email and it says, check out our case study on mid-market companies. So it's sending that first email. Again, it's targeted because they went into the mid-market list because that's what they signed up for. And then it sends, and that's in 2 days, and 10 days later, our webinar on 2014 tax insights. So we changed it up a little bit, but it still relates to the content. And then 30 days later, it'll say schedule a mid-market tax specialist. So it's actually doing a much harder call 30 days out. So that's that marketing automation platform that as you walk through this, that you're getting the exposure, you're getting someone to sign up on a specific topic, and then you're sending more harder calls to action automatically because they signed up for that list. Does that make sense? And so the first one's a little bit lighter, case study, and then you go to webinar, and then you go to a hard sell. And some of those go out much longer. People will do them over a year, some will do over 6 months. Some companies, if you signed up for something, in 10 days you'll get 5 email addresses they're trying to push really hard. You can set that schedule within an automation software, but that's really how it works. And then the nice thing is with marketing automation, it shows what happened. So when I signed up for that download, if you're using a marketing automation platform, it'll actually start tracking you. And it knew that I visited from Google, it knew I visited that article, it knew that I signed up, it'll show that I clicked on that email that said about the case study. And so your salespeople can then go back and they'll actually see a list of all the interactions someone had with you. And the cool thing for salespeople that can do is they can call up and say, hey, I know that you're really interested in tax withholdings for 2014. Wouldn't you like to talk about that? So that's how that process works. And that revenue map that we talked about. There's that search optimization, social media of exposure. There's that piece of content that's there. There's then getting them to sign up to go into marketing automation. It sends them a couple emails. And then they come back, and hopefully when they viewed that case study, they filled out our contact form because there's a call to action to do that. So it runs them through the process. And if we set up that model and we start pushing people through, that's where we go from getting 0 leads out of our website to, over time, you start building them. And it's 1, 2, 3, and you keep building them over time. So I know that's a little bit crazy and complex. So questions, does that make sense how that process works? Through there.
Those services that you talked about, I'm assuming they're all paid. Is there like a service where you can start for free or pretty cheap just to like test things out as you get started?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously creating content, I mean, that depends. You can do it at different levels. To create valuable content, you want to spend a little bit more. For marketing automation, it can get expensive right away. You can fake it with like MailChimp, which is just an email blast software that you'll have, but it's more manual. Where with MailChimp, you would, on each of those, download this white paper. They would go into a specific mailing list. You can have it do that. And then you would manually have to go out maybe each week and send out to that list. The issue is that everybody's really going to be getting that same email, so you have to kind of figure out not to overlap. The nice thing about automation is everybody starts new. It's almost like their own little mailing list. And then you've got scheduled the first email, the second, the third, the fourth. And whether they came in last month or they come in 30 days, they get that same exact sequence. So I mean, that's why. But then also the nice thing with marketing automation is you get that full tracking of, did they open any of those emails? When did they come back to the website? But yeah, I mean, you can kind of fake it with MailChimp and analytics, but it's definitely a much more manual process.
Can I offer
some
suggestion? I know when I was trying to sell marketing automation and the investment in an organization, I first used like tools I had, like CRM or Excel lists and things like that, and took some content and tested it out to prove the value, to say, okay, I want us to invest in this because I played with it over here and I've been manually doing it with CRM and Excel. Yeah. And I've seen it working. I think we could even get it to work more if we, right.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to do it, but yeah, I mean, you've got to test all this out. And I mean, hopefully your website and tracking analytics and those pieces is giving you the data to help, validate the purchase.
Going back to your comment about being able to use this as a sales tool, other than the fact that there'd obviously have to be some finesse involved in that conversation, do you ever find that the potential customer gets a little freaked out over the fact that you know so much or does most people that you
And
come
again,
across?
that's your sales approach. I
Right.
mean, and it's funny, I did a seminar like this, and someone asked the same question.
Oh, really?
And I think it's, I mean, obviously you're not calling them up and going, I know that you looked
You
at
downloaded
June
our video,
30th
yeah.
at 5:45,
Yeah.
and then you went to these 3 pages.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously have to have some sense of, you
Right.
know, your
So
sales.
do you find that
how
most
you
people
do
are
it.
kind of like, yeah, I did, yes, I am interested. I mean, are they
I think-
positively looking at that?
Yeah, and I think I mean, again, you have to, I mean, it's all
Right.
about approach.
Right.
It's, you're not saying you looked at this, it's just like, hey, I mean, we saw you download this white paper, is there more information that I can give you? And you really have to think about the approaches.
Right.
I mean, we have the same challenge, we send out online proposals, you know, and so I know every time one of our clients looks at a proposal, and you don't want to call them 3 seconds after and be like, hey, ready to say yes, so.
Well, I think too, it's all in how you set up your automated responses, so that, you know, if you make them fun and lighthearted, and you kind of reference that somebody's gonna be calling you just to see if, you know,
That's
so it's
true.
like you prep people that this is just what we do, this is how we handle our business, this is
Right.
our customer service we offer,
Right.
and you make it more about customer service and customer centric. Like making
Yeah.
that phone call will be less like I'm
Awkward.
spying on
Yeah.
you. I know all your moves. Thank you, Facebook and Google.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff is definitely about the approach, and it's testing things out. I mean, you have to try different ways and figure out what works best for you and your types of customers. So I think the next thing to kind of bring up is that this isn't an instant thing. You know, developing content, building social media lists, building your email list, building your automation, all of this has to happen over time. And especially with content and, you know, building search rank, it's something that, this is a good example of a blog that was started, and you start really here with creating content and building these pieces. And it's not till here that you start seeing your daily traffic really going up, where you're starting to build some of these inbound links, you've been able to get people to sign up, you've been able to get follows on social media. And it's different for everyone, and depending on how much investment you want to put, you can speed things up with tactics like pay-per-click and advertising and other pieces. But no matter what, it's a long-term journey that has to continually grow. So I was going to talk a little bit for the next couple minutes about different types of content and some tips that make those different content pieces work better. I thought this was an interesting graphic that they did a study just to kind of ask people about content. And they said the biggest content marketing challenge in organizations, and this is going to make sense, but you know, the top one is producing engaging content, producing enough content. I'm a big fan that at the end of the day, I'd much rather that a strategy be create one great thing per quarter or one great thing per month rather than 10 things every week that are mediocre, not very valuable, and surface level. Budget to produce content, lack of C-level buy-in, which is one that we hear a lot, and then producing a variety of content and then no answer. So it just kind of gives you a sense that probably the same things that you're thinking in your head about this process, that everyone else is having the same challenges with content marketing. But I think there's ways that you can reduce some of these pains and still achieve the results that are needed. Yeah?
What experience have you seen as far as original content versus you showing someone recycled content, but
Yeah.
they not be aware of it, and they're like, I could have just went to that site myself and put that article myself and read it, but there's some value in you pointing me that way, and I'm willing to maybe trade off an email for that.
Yeah, so curated and, you know, reused content or some sort of sponsored content. I mean, I always think original content is better because it's going to improve your search rank, because you're not going to have duplication, and it should be more valuable to the target audience. But I mean, there are definitely good strategies around, you know, using guest bloggers or reusing content or doing curation. Curation works really well, that you could do the top 10 list and then link to a bunch of other articles that show you where that content comes from. And that happens all the time with our site and with a lot of our customers, is that you'll see other people will create a summary of something that we created, and then they'll link into us, which is great for me because it gets me inbound links for search optimization. And it's probably good for them because they don't have to do as much work. I always lean towards trying to create as much original stuff as possible. I think it works a lot better. but you can definitely do the curated and kind of recycled. So I'll talk about a couple things: articles and infographics, white papers and webinars, calculators and case studies. And I broke it out into obviously suspects, prospects, and leads. These are some of my favorite pieces of content that I like to create, but it's some stuff that we can look at and talk about how you make it more successful. So articles, I just kind of want to get a high level. You know, there's two things to articles that are interesting these days. I think less people are reading longer articles, and the preferred articles that are out there are top 10 lists. Those by far always, you know, top 10 or top 50 or top 5, always get a ton of results, not only in the search engines, but also traction in emails and all of those different pieces. So top lists work really well, but they're short. The interesting thing is Google just came out with, well, it's been a while now, but Hummingbird, which is their new algorithm, which is trying to look at more in-depth content, longer stuff, because they want to find things that are more relevant and valuable. So it's kind of this give and take. I think the big thing that you have to look at with any of these lists or the length of content is what's best for the target audience. If it's a CEO of a company, their attention span is probably a little bit shorter. So if that's your target audience, you really want to look at shorter stuff. If it's the engineer at a manufacturing company, I can probably do a 2-page article that goes a little bit more in-depth and scientific. So I don't necessarily think there's a rule of thumb to say specifically stay with this type of content or potentially, you know, a short article or long. I think it all has to do with your target audience. Yeah.
You know, we're in a funny place where a lot of our audience ranges across a variety of, you know, positions. We do have CFOs reading some of the technical, a lot of it is financial related, but then we also might have some financials that are affecting, you know, maybe the back end bookkeeper and such, yeah. But it's really kind of all tied in. Do you think there's any value into maybe creating both, where one might be a longer version, but we might create a shorter synopsis that kind of covers a little bit, but click here to read more, and that could take them to the
100%.
front? And then, I mean, would you then in fact actually do both, or would the shorter one maybe be the push out and then inbound it back into the longer version, or?
Yeah, I definitely think you can do both, and I think that's a good strategy. Again, it goes back to, you know, in a marketing strategy, you're really looking at your target audience and seeing who's the best decision maker. You know, again, you're probably not going to be able to do everything for everybody right away. So if CFOs are who buy most likely from you versus, because bookkeepers could probably be good referrals into companies, right. But it's the CFO that probably makes the decision. So in your beginning strategy, start with that, but then maybe down the road, you come back around and you could create a longer article for bookkeepers to get more in depth, because you know that's a good potential. But in the beginning, it's really, again, that marketing strategy is, you know, who's our target persona and which ones are most likely to buy and make the decisions. You know, we want to start creating these micro groups and then prioritizing them. Because we have the same problem. We will go into an organization, there are 5, 6 verticals, within that 10 different people, you know, all these things, and you really have to choose which ones, and you have to rank them and say, this is what we're going to strategize to go for. That makes sense.
I think that the interviewing the client or the buyer persona really helps, because I mean, we might make assumptions like, oh, the CFO needs to net it out, so I need to keep things at a really high level, or maybe an infographic works for them because it's just like real quick, because there's so many things on their plate. But maybe that assumption's wrong, but until you survey and ask, you don't know.
Yeah, and that's the key part of that persona process, is really making sure you're communicating with customers. You know, other things that work great reviews, op-ed pieces, how-tos. News hacks I like a lot, which is something major that's going on, and you hack onto it. A good example, we ended up not doing it, but you know, when Uber came out and was a big ordeal around Cleveland, you know, we wanted to do a quick video where we were going to go through into the Uber cabs and interview them and find out what they thought about Cleveland. So you take something that's a big piece that's either going on in your industry or in your city or in one of the regions you're going after, whatever it might be, and you create some hack on some big piece of news. Including video and images works really well. They tend to get clicked on. They do better in search engine optimization, all of these different pieces. The nice thing about including video is you typically put it on YouTube and Vimeo and these other channels, and you're getting more distribution and more content that's out there for the search engines to find. So those are some of the things to do with articles. Infographics, I love infographics. This is our sheet, but it's kind of a half breed of an infographic. This is an example of one up here. It's a longer one, and this one was about web content. And you can see that here's just a breakout from it. It just takes data and information and puts it in a really cool visual format. This stuff, infographics, can work for any industry, and it is huge fodder for sharing, search optimization, all of these different pieces. And so no matter what you're doing, you can probably find a great way to do infographics. And they're easily to be scanned. There's something that people can potentially save onto their computer, and if you have your branding on it. We actually, I think, put one in a ad that we did in Cranes. And it's funny, one of our people went to somebody's office and saw it posted up on their wall because we created just a cool infographic with a quote on it that somebody did. So there's different things that you can do. I love infographics. I think they're just a great strategy and work really well.
Are infographics a fad, or are they here to stay, do you think? And also, are they searchable when they're on websites? Because sometimes I'll see an infographic, and I like them too, but then I get down to the bottom and it looks like things are repeated, and I was wondering.
What do you mean repeated?
Like sometimes I'll read an infographic, and I'll read it, and then I get to the bottom, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is done, but if I keep scrolling, it looks like some of the parts of it are repeated, so maybe so you can tweet it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
That could be. Do I think they're fad? No, I think they're going to continually evolve. The trend that we're seeing now is where they're interactive, where instead of it being a flat graphic, it's a page that you scroll down and the stats are coming up and the graphics are moving. You'll see this right now. The trend is with annual reports for companies that they're doing these interactive one-page things as you scroll down. So I think they're going to change. And those are a little bit more searchable because it's web content. The key is definitely if you're creating an infographic to do it around other stuff. You know, that it's one of those download pieces that you can get people to sign up an email address for. You're putting content on the page that relates to what this graphic is saying.
Okay.
I mean, there's ways to
So it's not
optimize it.
specifically searchable then?
No, the
Okay.
graphic itself is not. I mean,
Okay.
I'm sure they're starting to search videos, so I'm sure they'll be able to do it with
Okay.
infographics soon. But I don't think it's a fad. I think it's going to continue to evolve.
Yeah.
You'll see them become more interactive. You're going to see them be more native into the browser than being a static graphic.
It definitely makes it like such an easy way to consume data, so.
And I think that's the important piece.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, you can use these in the sales process as well. So it's not just the lead generation, but how do you go into that process and communicate what you do or what's important for your industry better. So I think these can be used in a lot of different ways. So white papers, a lot of people are talking about white papers, and this is the biggest thing for the downloadable content these days is white paper. So I've just tried to throw up a couple tips that I think are important for this. Setting up a great intro. If you get into a longer white paper, so white paper is typically more technical, it's a longer document. They don't always have to be white and boring. There's plenty of white papers that are out there that have a lot of graphics and a lot of visuals in them, which I think I mentioned here. But one key piece is definitely setting up a great intro for it. That's when people decide whether they're going to read the whole paper or not. If it's 5, 10 pages, whatever it might be, that intro really is what drives whether they're going to pay attention. Don't be afraid to get visual, I mentioned. Don't sell, it's meant to be informational, provide value to the audience. If you're going through the entire thing talking about your services and how you did it, you're really not providing a great white paper. Provide proof, so don't just say opinions throughout the thing. Definitely if you can include data or quotes or other links to things that are important with the white paper, it's important. Don't be shallow, provide information your prospect can use. So I see that all the time where someone is very surface level. Be targeted and relevant and be focused and valuable. So again, back to all of our content, making sure we're following along with some of those things. Webinars, again, I'm keeping it really simple here, but some do's and don'ts, which I think are important. Webinars can work really well. You have to have the right industry and the right strategy. I've seen them fail in some industries. I've seen some industries do really well with them. But do's, ask questions often. A lot of times we'll help people through what the webinar process is, and whoever the trainer is will just speak instead of asking questions. That's definitely a bad strategy. Use the chat feature. Some people are afraid to use that, but most webinar softwares have a little chat feature. You can ask questions there. A lot of times people will ask questions themselves of you through that chat feature. Ignoring it is really a bad method because you can tie into a lot of good things in sales. Provide follow-up materials, record it, have a unique angle and use it in your title. I think that's key. You know, how are you making someone sign up for this? It shouldn't be like our seminar is why your content marketing can't suck. You know, you really want to have some sort of angle associated to it.
What do you mean a unique angle?
A unique angle?
Yeah.
Like something that's more interesting, that it's not just a plain webinar about, you know, hey, we're doing a content marketing webinar. It's, you know, the webinar is your content can't suck, and then throughout it you talk about, you know, associated to that angle of don't do it badly and here's why you don't want to do it. So having some sort of approach to it that's more interesting. Some don'ts. Don't be an information dump. If you're a bad or boring presenter, obviously that's a bad thing to do. Focus on features instead of, focus on features instead of value and usage. Actually, it's meant to be the other way. Focus on value and usage instead of features. Use any tool. Find the one that's right for you. There's a lot of different webinar softwares out there. You have to evaluate them to figure out what works best for you. And then don't forget to promote it like how if you're going to do a webinar, make sure that you're doing it on a regular basis and really getting it out to your network. So the other piece, the infographics that I love is calculators. And tools, things that are interactive and give you some sort of result, especially associated to some value. This is a good example of one that is an ROI calculator. Basically, you can say what your cost per click is, what conversion rate on people that land on the page is, what the average purchase is of a buyer that comes to that page, and it'll help you give a sense of what your cost was for the ads, your revenue, your profit. And as you change these numbers real time, it'll change those figures for you. I think the original piece of this was the mortgage calculators that you saw on a lot of bank websites. I think for any industry, whether you're doing an ROI calculator, any other kind of tool or calculator, I think this is what's really going to grow in the industry, is you're going to see a lot of ways that companies are coming up with for them to help the buyer not just read or learn, but actually go in and use something and get value out of it and then put in their email address so that you can follow up with it. So I really love calculators and tools and where they'll potentially go. And then case studies, I think that's my last one, but just doing the do's and don'ts again. You know, use real numbers, make it really visual, or use video. I think too many people try and be boring with their case studies. They do the typical problem solution. Try and think about using, you know, an infographic style or potentially a video in there. Know what your audience cares about. A lot of times we put together case studies and we think we know, but it's worth asking your customers what the most important parts of the process were and making sure you're highlighting those throughout. Using quotes and being extremely targeted are important. The don'ts, beat around the bush and hide identities. I hate those generic case studies where it's, you know, X manufacturer in, you know, Wyoming was this, and then they can't use names and they can't say anything about it. It's so high level and generic that it doesn't provide any value. Obviously, tell an organized and clear story. Don't try and be a hero too much. You didn't come in and you didn't change their lives, but what did you really accomplish for them? So making sure that you're not trying to do that too much. Make it the wrong length for the wrong audience. We talked about that a little bit, but if you're talking to a CEO and doing a case study, they may not care as much. And then forget to have a unique angle. So the other thing I want to bring up, just kind of ending talking about content a little bit, is trying new things. I don't think we should be afraid to really go outside what we typically do and try new things. We did this recently called our 10 to Win, which was a 10-minute video of 4 of us standing over a table and doing a strategic plan for a company. So we picked a manufacturing company that was having search engine optimization problems, and we had 4 of us in a room on a glass table that we could write on, and we did a 10-minute strategic plan for them. I think it was a great idea in theory, but we've realized that a lot of people have had challenges watching a 10-minute video. But we tried new things, and now we're able to go back and look at how could we potentially change that to make it better. And that's something that we're doing all the time, is just stepping outside the bounds of our typical, top 5 articles or our quick insight videos, and trying new things that might work for our market. And I don't think this is dead yet. What we need to do is really think about how do we need to promote it correctly. We put it out on social media, send it to a couple of our email lists, but potentially targeting a very specific group like marketing managers within manufacturing companies and sending out a direct mailer may bring this back to life. So even sometimes when you're trying new things and they may not work, it's worth it coming back and rethinking about the strategy and how can you make something successful. So you never know. There might be more of these.
So you were saying it's too long because people were like just dropping off early or whatever?
Yeah, we had people dropping off early. We weren't getting the share rates on it that we were expecting. I think we had about 60 or 70 people share, whatever it might be, which for us isn't a lot. I mean, we've had articles that have been shared 10,000 times. So, I mean, for us, this ended up not being, and it may be the market, so.
So were there a group that did watch the entire video?
What'd you say?
Was there a group that did watch the full 2 minutes?
It was pretty small.
Yeah.
It was pretty small at the end of the day, so, I mean, and it's interesting, and it's interesting to see how that works and testing it out with different markets. Because we do a ton of videos and they work out really successfully. We do short 1 to 3 minute videos, and we probably put out about 2 of them a week, and they're really successful, but they're kind of surface level because they're only 1 minute to 2 minutes. So this time we wanted to be very focused on an industry, very focused on a specific problem, and then make it a little bit more in-depth and content-heavy. And even along with it, there's an article that summarizes it underneath so that we have that content. So, I mean, it just, at least right now, hasn't worked out, and it's been probably about 3 months since we've had it up. But there's other strategies you test. But I think that's the important piece is don't always feel like you need to stay in the specific angles or types of content. It's worth trying new things because you never know when something could be a huge hit.
So video you think is the best content?
I think video is good content, but I think it has to do with your target audience and again, going back to understanding, how do they like to engage with your brand, what type of content do they like. The CEO of a manufacturing company is very different than the IT manager of a software business. I mean, they like different types of content, they read, they're on different social networks, they like different lengths. I mean, so it really depends on your industry more than a specific type being better. If that makes sense. So talk a little bit about distribution. So the next thing with content marketing is we create this amazing content. We spent this time really understanding what our target audience wants, their pains. We've put money into writing articles and building videos. So how do we get it out there? And how do we keep building it out there? So I thought this was just an interesting graphic to show you how many there are, and there's way more than this, but it gives you a good sense. We've got search engines, directories, sites and blogs, content sites, reviews, social, location-based services, deals, and the list goes on of different places, depending on your types of content, that you can distribute. But I'm just going to pick out a couple that I think for people that are starting out in content marketing are important to look at and talk about in this process. So we have people that are called paid, owned, and earned media. That's typically how, a lot of times they're segmenting it in companies like ours. You have paid, which you purchase, owned, which means you own that media, like your website or your newsletter and those things. Or there's earned, where someone else is sharing it, like social media, review sites, content sites, so you're earning that. So on your own media, present the right information at the right time, making sure that if you're putting it on your website, that if you're doing download an ebook, that it's presented with the right content or with the right pages. This doesn't always have to be an article to an ebook. If someone's on a specific services page, that's a great place to put one of those conversion points to get a lead. So making sure you're matching up content correctly, though, is really important. Integrating sharing tools. If your site doesn't have that on it now, some sort of tool where people can just click a button, post it on Facebook or Google+, you really should be integrating that right away. Optimize the content for search engines. If you're creating that video, create a transcript or summary underneath, whatever it might be. Optimize for mobile, making sure that now more and more people are reading on their iPads, on their mobile phones, and really making sure that if you're creating content, especially videos, and the one thing that I see issues with, and even our site has issues with, is infographics, because they don't scale as well and they're hard to read on mobile phones. So making sure, and I see that on Inc. magazine, it drives me nuts, that on Inc. magazine I'll plug into an infographic and it looks horrible when you can't read it. Try to build a focused microsite for lead generation. A great example is, let's say you have a targeted industry like mid-market manufacturing companies. Create a little microsite that just has content and information for them, and build those conversion tools into that. So it's extremely focused, and whether that's a subdomain of your site or you create a whole new domain, you build a little microsite and create this content on a regular basis, and it'll rise up in the search engines, and you're going to be more likely to get people to convert. So try some of that stuff with your own media, the things that you have control over. The other thing, if you're getting started out in content marketing, is really looking at how you can distribute it through people that are around you, partners. What mailing list do they have, and can you potentially tack onto that? So if you have someone that you work with on a regular basis or as a vendor, really trying to coordinate with them to see how you can exchange, basically creating content for them so that they have information for their audiences. Affiliates, looking at, what are affiliate partners out there, people that are looking for links and content that you can post on. Industry leaders is big. If there's someone in the industry, whether it be a social media, that there's someone that's really popular, or they hold a blog, or they have some sort of site that's associated, really targeting for who your market is and who your targets are. Who are the industry leaders or the influencers, and trying to utilize them to help promote your content and build your social media list. And then the last is communities. A quick way on LinkedIn is there's so many different groups around different topics. Finding those groups, posting your content, that's how you find your industry leaders as well. There's also forums. There's 1 million forums in every industry that they're answering problems. If you're in accounting, you look at the QuickBooks forum, and how can you potentially utilize and post content on that. So you find these different communities that already exist, and there's a ton of people out there, and you leverage them to get more exposure. Get social. I know that a lot of us are hesitant about social, especially in the B2B space. We tend to hear that all the time. It is important for search optimization, and tied into that is your content marketing. So if you're not already, get out there and build your reach with your own content, curated, and interaction. So if you're not on social media, make sure you're sending out your content, that you're grabbing other content from within your industry and sharing it, so that you have curated content, and then making sure that you're interacting with people within your industry. Follow and engage with influencers. So again, those people that are on social media that in your industry have a wide following, making sure you're engaging with them, you're having conversations, you're including them in different posts. We had a great example of Mary Smith, who has something like several million followers, reshared one of our articles because I think we did a hashtag that she uses a lot. She reshared it, and we got something like 10,000 visitors in one day to an article because she shared one of our pieces of content. Influencer in the industry, gives us search value, gives us wide scale exposure. Ask employees to participate. I know we're always fearful of that, but throughout a company, we have a wide group of people. If you have 30 people in your company and they have connections on LinkedIn, they have connections on Facebook, some of them might be in Twitter, that's an instant audience for us. I know it's hard to sometimes ask employees to do that, but if you develop a program within your business, which you can, where you're basically saying, we put out this new content this week, you send out some sort of mailer, you have an intranet and say, hey, if you get a chance, please share this. You can build in systems that help promote to your internal audience to make sure they're promoting to an external audience. Use hashtags, and then make your posts enticing for clicks, shares, and likes. It's been funny how many times I've actually gotten mentioned that from other people that they just liked it because they liked the title of the post and didn't even click on it sometimes. But you really want to make sure things that are enticing so that they notice them in this feed that's coming through constantly. So not only the content has to be valuable, but also that quick post that you're saying about it. And then lastly, using lists. You know, we talked about segmenting. So if you're doing email and you're getting people to sign up or you're building these email lists, the key component to it is segmenting. Making sure that you're breaking your audience into smaller pieces. If you right now are building an email list or have an email list and it's broken into one single list instead of into multiple, you know, vendors, clients, prospects, and then potentially industries or job types. If you're not doing any of that segmentation, your strategy is probably all over the place and you're not really targeting people specifically. And it goes back to kind of that original discussion. Utilize marketing automation and ensure it's focused. We talked a little bit about marketing automation. And then good email practices. Emails get opened when they have great subject lines, short ones that don't sell. Emails that have images in them tend to get clicked on more than emails that are just fully text. And then limit the number of actions. I see this all the time, is that someone will create an email blast that will have navigation at the top, 50 articles, things on the side, etc. You're giving people too many options. Try and keep it simple so that it's targeted for them. And then I think pretty close to last here, so we have some time for some questions, but there's tons of distribution tools out there, things that can help you do stuff. The first one to download, I think, is Hootsuite, which I have a picture of here. You can sign up all your different social media platforms into it. So you can put your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, and then you can schedule posts. So someone like Matt in our organization, we create a piece of content. He can come in here, put it in here, and actually schedule it to go to LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for the full week. So he'll schedule something that goes out. Obviously, you want to be paying attention and doing things as they come up, but this is a great way to automate the process so that if you're creating content, you can plan ahead and schedule things out. Plus, it gives you a lot of other features like analytics. It has the ability that you can create different searches. So one that we have is we have a tab called Competitors, and it shows a list of everything that our competitors are sharing on their social media platforms so we can see what's going on. Some other good ones. Share This is a great tool that you use to put on your website to share content. Stumble Upon is a nice tool. Depending what industry you're in, it can work really well. There's tons of them out there. There's hundreds. It's finding the right ones for you, but those are some good ones to pay attention to. And so this is my second to last slide. I just wanted to bring this up again. Again, trying to help people understand the big picture of marketing. You know, I always say that if a lot of people kind of forget about this content piece, or they're not doing it well, or they don't have marketing automation or anything like that, you're really missing big holes in your strategy if you're not looking at all of this stuff. Even on here on your exposure side, if you're just looking at pay-per-click or just looking at email, but you're ignoring retargeting and social and search optimization, your strategy is really missing big holes and how it fits into the big picture. So it's important when you're developing that marketing approach that you're really looking at this full picture strategy and having at least something for all the different elements so you're doing it correctly. So that's it. Any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer. We've got Matt and at least Kelly in the room also, if you want to chat with some people or jump over to office. But yeah, thank you for coming. Any questions? No, overwhelming questions.
When you set up a landing page and you connect some analytics behind it, are you looking to see if people, and you're really testing an idea, and you don't want your content to be driven to be biased, are you testing that piece of content you're delivering people are attracted to, and then maybe making an assumption, or a big assumption maybe?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying to figure out exactly, you know, for a person who's testing, what might a landing page actually do for you? I mean, I know you get automatically the analytics, the visits, the clicks, and so on and so forth. But
well, a landing page should have good actions on it, whether that's to fill out a contact form, sign up for a demo. It should have very direct actions. So you're looking for some sort of conversion rate. If you're looking at it, that's what you're measuring. So if you're doing a landing page and you have a pay-per-click campaign where you're paying $1 a click, and you send 1,000 clicks there for $1,000, you should know on that landing page that you got 5 people to fill it out, so it's costing you, what, $200 a click, you know, or $200 per conversion. Then what you really do with the landing page is how do you change that? Either you're changing the pay-per-click campaign to get more of the right people to that page so that your conversion rate goes up and your dollars per lead go down, or you're optimizing that page and figure out if 1,000 people, how do I go from having 5 fill it out to 50, and you're making changes to the page, and either adding more enticing content for the download, or potentially changing up your action, changing up your messaging. So that's really what a landing page should do, is
So it's not really testing per se, an idea.
It can be
I
used
mean,
for
you know,
testing an idea.
Yeah. But in
But you have
the
to
right
work,
way.
but yeah. I mean, it should be, I mean, it's all testing ideas at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, it depends. I mean, you can use it for specifically that, but you're obviously putting budget into testing that idea. That makes sense.
Video email, are they still in existence?
Video email?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, because you know, it's been a long time since I've talked about that, is that you could never do video within email, but you could always show like an image and click in it. I think there was a platform back in the day that was saying that you could play a video in an email, but they basically, I think most of the email platforms shut that down.
Why did they do that?
I think because they just don't want the, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Bandwidth.
Bandwidth, but probably intrusion into your inbox that a video would be potentially.
Dangerous. You could shut down your actually email.
Yeah, I mean, you know, email is one of those clients that I think, but it's interesting, that may change. You know, Google for a long time was starting to, with their, whatever that platform was years ago that they got rid of, but they were starting to allow people to do a lot more embedding of different media within messaging across people. And I think there's new platforms coming out that are going to allow that, so it could be interesting how that might change, but email may change completely too. It's interesting, there is an article about how email is like, for the number of years that it's been around, it's the one thing that has not evolved significantly compared to like everything else in the industry. And you know, how every company is trying to figure out how to do it. And Google tried for a while. I'm trying to remember what that platform was.
Is it the bandwidth size that causes it?
Hmm?
Is it the bandwidth size that causes it to remain as it is?
No, I don't think that that's what's pushing them, the bandwidth, because at the end of the day, this stuff's on the web and it's really not, I mean, Google doesn't care, you know, for Gmail or Outlook doesn't care about bandwidth. It's probably just more, you know, what people expect in the emails and, you know, where their platforms are going. It may change.
Is it Wave? Google Wave, are you talking about?
Google Wave.
I couldn't think of it either.
That was an interesting platform. I was excited for that, and then, I don't know.
It failed.
Went away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking about creating unique messages that you know you're sending to a certain targeted audience, are you or your customers, I mean, are people ever nervous about the fact that if they do come up with like a really cool, unique idea that others are going to steal it? I mean, do you just have to be cool with it and say, you know, I'm going to put it out there, and if someone takes it, they take it, but...
Yeah, that's definitely the risk, and I hear that all the time. And I you know, I'm always the fan of putting everything out there. At the end of the day, you want to be the first person out there, and you want to do it better than they do.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'd rather that than have my competitor come up with that great piece of unique content, and they put it out there first, and have it out there for 6 months while I'm sitting here floundering. You know, so it's not always... Sometimes you have to ignore the risks for the opportunity, which is much bigger.
Right.
You know, and too many people, and they do the same thing with case studies and client testimonials. People see people fearing putting their client names and stuff out there. I'd rather do it if it's going to help me close 1 or 2 more deals than worry about my competitor calling that person when I've already got their business. And so, I mean, that always is something that we fight with customers about all the time. So. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Please feel free to stick around or follow up with us on any of this stuff. And see you soon, I'm sure. Thanks.